Hello, my name is Ali Carter. I'm the Managing Director of Divorce Limited and we trade as Mediate UK. I'm going to take you through the 7 steps to a perfect divorce. So these are the steps that you should ideally follow to end your marriage. And some people ask, is there such a way or such a thing as a perfect divorce? Well, we've helped in over 3,000 divorce or separations now in the 9 years that we've been running the company. And yes, we think there is. We think there is a process, a way of doing things that can help you divorce as amicably as possible. So let's go straight in. Step 1 is you both accept, you both agree that the marriage is over, and that is a really important step to allow you both to move on. It's unlikely that you are going to reach that agreement at precisely the same time. One of you may have spent years realizing that you don't want to be in the marriage anymore, and for the other person it could be a complete shock. But if you can go to relationship counselling, you can discuss whether you actually believe the marriage is recoverable. If one of you doesn't think it is, and it does take both of you to want to make it work, but if one of you doesn't think the marriage is recoverable, then through counselling you can explain why, and you can agree that if it isn't going to work, that you can at least divorce as amicably as you can, and prioritize all the correct things. So that would be the first step, is an understanding that the marriage isn't recoverable, but it's not working, but you're going to draw a line in the sand from now. And the best way to do that, if you can't do it between yourselves, is with a relationship counsellor, therapist, who can talk you through that and help you understand the reasons why. So that's the first step. Step 2 is then you want to look at the parenting arrangements moving forward. So the first thing you want to be prioritising is the children, making sure that you have a great parenting plan. Studies by child psychologists show that it's not the actual divorcing that causes longer term damage to a child's well-being. It's the arguing, it's using them as a messenger, it's all the things, domestic abuse, it's all those things that have a lasting impact on a child. So done well, it's going to have a minimal effect on the child. In fact, there can even be advantages to them: 2 Christmases, more presents, and I've been through a divorce myself. You put more attention on the child as well, and you can actually do things and spend more time with them that perhaps you wouldn't have done when you were going through everyday life. So look at that together. The best way to resolve that is between yourselves as parents. If you can't, use family mediation. There's a process there, and we would take you through a parenting plan which you can then use moving forwards. You can have a parenting plan made legally binding with a consent order if you choose to do so. So once you've looked at the parenting arrangements, you need to be working out where you're both going to live. The problem you need to solve here is, how do we fund 2 households, whereas before we were just funding for one? And if you're like most families, you're probably struggling to fund just the one household, and now you need to try and fund 2. So there's things you can do there. You need to be looking to try and maximise your own incomes as much as possible. You may be entitled to certain help that you wouldn't have been entitled to when you were living together. So have a look at a website like turntous.org.uk. You can put in your details, as they will be when you start to live separately. You need to agree what's going to happen to the house. There tends to be around about 10 options you've got with a former marital home. So most people will either look to sell that if possible. One of you may stay there for a few years, especially if the children are young, and that's what you can both agree to. So there's lots of things you can do with a property. If you can't agree between yourself, mediation, again, really helpful to help you both just focus on solving that issue. How are we going to fund two households? Step 4 is working out how to divide your assets. So you've worked out your living arrangements, and if you're lucky enough after that to have assets outstanding, then you need to have a look at how they're going to be divided up fairly between you. The starting point is 50-50. It's called the yardstick of equality, but that can move right up or down depending on your circumstances. There is no set rule on this. It really is specific to your needs as a family, what your needs are moving forwards. You need to have a look at your pensions. They come into play here. I'm going to say it again, it's where mediation can help. We've also linked up with pension experts who can give you advice on pensions as well. So you've agreed the parenting, you've agreed the living arrangements, and you've agreed to the division of assets. And finally, you need to have a look at any ongoing payments. This would be child maintenance, and that's usually one of the easier areas to work out because it's one of the few areas where there is a calculator. You put in your details and it tells you the answer. And then there's spousal maintenance, which comes in where if one of you has an excess in their budget moving forwards and the other party doesn't have an excess as a deficit in their budget, then you could look to cover that deficit off. You then need to decide how much, for how long, and what the factors are for that to cease as well. That could be a difficult one. Family mediation is going to help you get to an agreement on that in most cases. So you've got to an agreement on everything. The last part is to make it legally binding. So we recommend for any financial arrangement that you get a consent order. This will protect you both moving forwards. It can provide a clean break, so you can't make a future claim against each other in 5, 10, 20 years time. The parenting arrangements, we recommend, if you can, just keep that as a parenting plan. You want to keep it nice and fluid. You don't want to keep going back to court every time you want to change Tuesday to a Wednesday evening, or as the children get older and their needs change. You just want to be able to adapt as parents to that. And step number 7, the final step, is on you. Put your plan into action and move on. The reason you're doing this is because you both want to be happier in your lives. You want the wider family to be happier. You don't want to be stuck in a toxic relationship that isn't working for you or the children. So really important is to look after yourself, allow yourself to make mistakes. You'll make mistakes as part of your divorce. You'll make decisions, you'll react in anger, things will happen, but allow yourself to move on. Look at making new friends, new hobbies, traveling, doing all those things. It really can be a great opportunity for you to put into plan all those things that you haven't been able to do when you were married that you now want to do. And if you can, every divorce will vary from person to person, but if you can do it as amicably, cost effectively, fairly as possible, and really prioritize for children whilst you're doing all of that, then you'll look back on that time and say, do you know what, it wasn't the most fun time in my life, but I'm quite proud of how we managed it, and look at us now. So those are my top 7 tips to achieve a perfect divorce. Please feel free to like or comment below, and there's a link to our blog where I go into more details on each of those 7 steps. Thank you for listening.